Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Story Behind the Stories for the December 6th, 2024 edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. I'm your host this week, Casper, Wehrhahn, and I'm joined by Ken Waddell, editor and publisher. Thank you very much for being with me here today.
You're welcome, Casper. It's always good to be with you.
Thank you. And, we've got a bit of a shorter paper this week, still filled with some good stuff in there, some stories that we're happy to share, 16 pages. I must say, I'll be honest, this might be more controversial of an episode of this week's Story Behind the Stories, because as we jump into the front page here, you'll probably understand why. A bit of a different front page story here, more of a expose, I guess the word would be, and that is to do with the Yellowhead. Ken Waddell wrote up that article / opinion, and goes into some of the details of management and all that sort of stuff, but best person to talk about it is here. So Ken, let's get into it.
Well, thanks, Casper. Yeah, the story is titled Yellowhead Center, Storied Past, Troubled Future. The Yellowhead Center was built in 1972. The history of the building is included in the article there, and many people know the history already, but many don't. And people know how it's some people know how it is run, others don't. Some people know how it's financed, many don't. And it's obvious that there's a lot of problems, and that's why we said in the headline, Troubled Future. The Yellowhead Center is not owned by the town of Neepawa. It's almost all rec centers in Manitoba are owned by the town, the respective towns. But this one isn't and never has been. It's owned by the Neepawa District Centennial Projects Committee, Inc., and it's always been under that title as a corporation, but it is not financed, like the total operation isn't financed by the town or any municipal entity. The town of Neepawa does put $100,000 into it. That hasn't always been the case. It's been a much lower amount, but it's been $100,000 for a few years now, which really is only worth about $85,000 in 2018 or 19 dollars. So that's slipping. So we use a comparison there in the story with Carberry, and in a nutshell, over the last 10 years or so, the Carberry has put at least $250,000 per year more into their rec center than the town of Neepawa has, and the surrounding municipalities, and so that's left a big hole, a big deficit, a capital cash flow deficit of $2.5 million, and it shows on the financial statements that the Yellowhead is losing money every year and has most years for a lot of years now. And I'm suggesting in the story that there's a lot of things that need to be changed. The Constitution needs to be followed. It hasn't been. There needs to be an influx of new people on the board. It needs to be some different ways of managing the place, because if it isn't changed, the Yellowhead is going to go broke. You can't keep losing $50,000, $60,000 a year, and without a subsidy, big subsidy from the town of Neepawa. So I'm suggesting that it's going to be a different system of financing and a different system of managing it. And it's probably not going to be real popular with some people, this opinion, but I think, and I've checked it out with a few people, they feel that it's an accurate description of the situation. And so we'll see what happens in the community if anybody steps up and says, yeah, we should make some changes, or whether they keep on the same old approach and come back 5 years from now and say, how come we don't have a Yellowhead Center?
Right, yeah. Obviously, I don't have the same insight that Ken or even Owen would have. He has more familiarity with the Yellowhead as well compared to me. But, I mean, I know some of the basics, like, obviously it's a volunteer run, it's not owned by the town, and, well, volunteers are valuable. They're valuable in your communities. Their efforts are very much appreciated for everything they do. But you know, I can see as well that some changes are needed for the Yellowhead so that things can, continue running, obviously, and staying open for the community. Making sure that upgrades that need to be done are done. Because I know there's been talk about different equipment and all of that for the facility. I think even the ice plant itself is due actually for some upgrades too. But the bottom line is, whatever happens, I just hope that the Yellowhead Center does well. I don't know what should be done going forward, but hopefully something can be figured out, and maybe the community will have some ideas. And if you do, maybe bring those ideas forward. I'm sure they would be much appreciated and very valuable.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them too, because I can certainly feed them into the appropriate spot. I think the board is open to some suggestions. Although I think the structure of the board, as I've explained in the story here, is part of the problem. Not the people on the board, but the structure of the board and the way it's set up. And there's just a lot of changes that need to come about. And I think there's a sort of a frozen, pardon the pun, frozen rigidity in the operation of the place, because, we can't afford to do this. Everything's, can't afford to do this. Well, some of the things that need to be done aren't that expensive. And the money is available to do it. It's borrowed money, mind you, but the money is available, has been available for years, and it hasn't been utilized. And so the Yellowhead board has been, and I was on the board, as I said in the article, I was on the board several years. I chaired it for 2 or 3 years. And I was mayor twice, and we were dealing with the Yellowhead all the time, all those years that I was mayor, about 8 years in total, and 7 years approximately. And yeah, it's just, I guess I was a little frustrated when I wrote this article, because there's nothing seems to change, and if we don't change, the place is going to die. And it's that simple.
Right. Yeah, and I think it was at their recent meeting that they did actually make some changes to the board structure, right? Or was that for something else?
No, they made a bit of a change, in as much as that they decided that certain board criteria, membership criteria, would be allowed 2 votes, and some would only be allowed 1 vote, and then others would be on the board but not have a vote, which I fail to see the value in that, but that's the route they went. And they did it at an annual meeting, and a constitution for an organization is only supposed to be changed at the annual meeting, but the annual meeting, there was no notice of motion of that change. So nobody knew it was coming, except the half a dozen people, 6 or 7 people of the 11-person board that actually showed up at the annual meeting.
Right.
And so I think it was ill-timed and ill-prepared, that change, and I don't think it was really necessary either. You needed people on the board who are willing to be there and vote. And the problem with a bigger organization like the Yellowhead Center is it's not like a small town rink. The small town rink, everybody knows you need 2 pots of chili and you need 3 pies for the hockey tournament this weekend, and everybody knows you got to be there at 10 o'clock for the first game, and you'll be out of there by 4 o'clock, and everybody's had a good day. Goodbye, hail fellow, well met, away we go. That isn't the way it is with the Yellowhead Center, because it's running 7 days a week, and it's open from 8 or 9 in the morning, especially on the weekends, right through till 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. It's not a bring 3 pies and 2 pots of soup and hope everything works out. Mm-hmm. That isn't how it runs.
Yeah.
Whereas smaller towns, and I've been in lots of smaller towns, lived in a few of them, and that small town model, village model, works for that size of rink. After all the volunteers have put in their big day on Saturday at the name-a-town rink, they go home and they don't have to come back till the next Saturday, or maybe there's something Thursday night or whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of downtime. There's lots of time to catch up. There's no time to catch up at the Yellowhead. It's go, 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 go all day long, or it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess if you want to get the full in-depth on this, obviously it's on the first page, and carries over to page 2 as well. Now, we did kind of break our rules. We made an exception for this. We never carry on to a 3rd page, but we do some carryover for this onto a 3rd page, and that is page 8. So take a look if you so desire, sort of take all this in, take in Ken's thoughts, some of the facts that's in here that he has in there that's supported. And we will shift into some other stories here, because we do have some other things to talk about.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah.
On page 8 in the paper is an excellent editorial that was done by Owen Devereaux, but it was done several years ago. I think it was 2016, 8 years ago. And we've reprinted it here because it outlines the problems very clearly that were there 8 years ago. They were there 10 or 12 years ago. They're still there. And we reprinted this editorial that Owen did to illustrate that there hasn't been enough change. Not nearly enough change to stay competitive for this and functional for this arena. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. No, that's good to point out. Thank you for that. And I will emphasize, I think we do have it on the page there for the editorial twice, actually. Just keep in mind, this is something that was written a number of years ago. Some of these things have been addressed or partially addressed. Not everything will still apply, but some things do still. So just keep in mind the time it was written, and we do have some notes on the page just highlighting that in case someone reads it and goes, hey, wait a minute. So keep that in mind as you're reading as well. So yeah, we will get into the inside of the paper now to some other stories here, and we have a few feel-good stories that I'm really happy to share this week. The first one here is actually on page 7. There was an appreciation lunch for the Neepawa District Palliative Care Program workers, and that was hosted by the Neepawa United Anglican Church. I was very happy to hear about that and get the invitation to go down. Couldn't stay for lunch, but smelled great, so that was put on by the church group there for the palliative care volunteers. They had some handmade lunch, of course, some soup and all that, and sandwiches, and some live music by a local musician, Blair Chapman. Always great to hear him at different events. Very skilled musician.
Yeah, the palliative care program is going for a number of years, headed up very ably by Mary Ellen Clark and a whole group of volunteers. And when families have a loved one who is entering into the last day or days or even sometimes a few weeks of life, palliative care people take over and provide as much support as they can. We have a good palliative care facility area within the Neepawa Hospital. And in order to support that and help it keep going and growing, is the memory tree. You can buy a memory bulb in honor of a loved one, and you can buy them at the hospital, Home Hardware, Harris Pharmacy, Super Thrifty Pharmacy, the Mill Lifestyle Store, and the Neepawa Banner Press. And all those donations will be very much appreciated by not only by the palliative care workers, but the palliative care coordinator, and certainly by the families who benefit from the palliative care program. There's hardly a family in the region that hasn't been affected and in a positive way by the palliative care program. So we need to keep it going and to help it to grow, because our population is growing. People get older every day, and so they need help. The families need help especially. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you can, like Ken said, consider donating to the Memory Tree, an appreciation and support of the Neepawa District Palliative Care Program, and of course in memory of a loved one that you'd like to remember this season. And once again, very happy to see some appreciation for these wonderful people that are out there providing the service that they do. Shifting over to page 13, we're getting into a bit more sports again, of a different sort of variety here. And that is to do with the Neepawa Curling Club, because they are hosting the regional qualifier for the Viterra Men's West First Region. So that will be coming to Neepawa here, and that date is actually, if I can find it here,
December 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th. Thank you very much, Ken. So that will be in town here very, very soon, this weekend. So that should be exciting. Some good action out there on the ice. Always a great pleasure to have anything to do with Viterra here, and other big events as well coming to the community, just for some excitement and of course things going on in the community, and it's a bit of a boost to the community economics as well. So very happy to be hosting that once again.
If you read the article, and then near the end of the article gives the website online where you can see where the teams are at, and you can also follow the draw. But they would be even happier if you would come down to the rink and actually take in the draw. I don't know if there's an admission charge or not. I don't think it says, but if there is an admission charge, I'm sure it'll be quite small, and I think it'll be great entertainment for people who love curling and want to get out and visit.
Definitely, yeah. It's always a great competition out there on the ice. and of course something to do for your weekend. Maybe get out and about and enjoy the community. Shifting into the other arenas in the area here and elsewhere. I actually didn't see where these games were held, so I apologize, but we have a little bit of an update on the Neepawa Farmers and of course the Titans as well. Unfortunately, this wasn't quite their set of games here. The Neepawa Farmers did fall to the Jets here, so there was that little bit of an update there. The Jets claimed a 7-2 victory over the Neepawa Farmers on December 1st. Sorry to see that for the Farmers, but hopefully they can pick it up for the next game and bring home a win there. As well in that article, and this is on page 10 by the way, Minnedosa also won over Deloraine. Congratulations, Minnedosa. And Carberry was able to beat out Melita there on their game too. So congratulations,
no,
Carberry.
You speed read that one.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, they were beaten by Melita.
Oh, beaten by Melita. My apologies and my condolences, Carberry. You'll get them next time.
I'm leaving too big a load on you, Casper. Sorry.
I read the Carberry and Beaton and Melita, and I skipped the bye. And then, yes, the Titans, of course, unfortunately did lose to Winnipeg there. I don't have the score right in front of me there.
Well, I was at those games, and they were close scores, but it was very disappointing for the Titans because the Winnipeg Freeze are the lowest, I think the lowest placed team in the whole league. They're not in the same division as the Titans, but everybody was like, wow, okay. And so it kind of shook them up. I'll give you a little bit of because after the paper went to print, on Thursday night, the Titans did go to Verdun, and they won 4-1 in Verdun. That was just last night because we're taping here on a Friday afternoon. And so they really came back on that one, even with 3 injuries. But I think the 2 games against the Winnipeg Freeze were a bit of a wake-up call. Think, oh my God, how do we lose against a team that's only won 3 or 4 games this year? But they figured out how to do that, and there's a thing happens with teams, not just the Titans. A thing happens with maybe especially hockey teams, but is that they'll come up against a strong team and they know they've got to really fight to get every point they can, and they did that in Portage the other night. But they lost by 1 goal against Portage, one of the top teams in the league, and then they go to Verdun and win there. But against the Freeze, it was almost as if they, I won't say no. It isn't that they weren't trying, but somehow teams play better against higher rated teams. It's the craziest thing, whether they rise to the challenge or whatever. But I think it was a wake-up call, though, for the team. They had some injuries, too, but it was a wake-up call. Like, my goodness, we got to do something different.
Right.
Or because statistically, then every team in the league would be able to beat them. If the lowest team beats them, every team in the league is going to be able to beat them, and that's not what you want to see.
No.
And the Titans are in 3rd place in their division, which is a lot better than a few years back when they were often down in 5th or 6th spot and out of the playoffs. But currently, it's very early yet, but they're in a playoff position right now. So.
Yeah. So is that something you sort of see throughout? What's the term? I guess divisions, like different levels of play.
Yes. Yeah, it's not unusual. Like if you watch, we watch a lot of the Winnipeg Jets hockey, and they'll come up against a strong team and they'll beat them out in overtime or beat them out with an empty net goal or something like that. And then the next game you think, oh, this should be okay, and they'll lose 6-2 or something. With in the case of Winnipeg Jets, they have literally the best goalie on the planet playing for them, Connor Hellebuck. But even he has a game where he lets 6 goals in sometimes, and you can see he's just standing there frustrated, shaking his head like,
yeah,
how did this happen? Yeah, you see that. I think hockey more than other teams, but they because it's so fast moving, like it's so uncontrolled at times where you have no idea where the puck's going to go a lot of the time. You shoot it general direction where you want it to go, but it may or may not get there.
Yeah, and I mean hockey is one of the there's a lot of sports out there that are fast-paced, but hockey is definitely one of those really fast-paced ones. I mean, that puck is pretty small. Like, you can see it, sure, but it really flies, so.
Well, even at junior level, some of those kids are skating at 25 miles an hour, which is really motoring on bursts, and shooting the puck at 75, 80, 85 miles an hour. I mean, that puck is moving. There's no question about it. So when you hear it bang against the boards, when it misses the net and it shakes the whole arena, you know that it's been moving. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah, if there's a clash against the boards, well, you know why. They're skating real fast. Yeah. Okay, we have one more nice sports story here. Again, of a different sort of sports here, if I can turn to the right page, which is page 9. I skipped ahead instead of going back. We have a story out of Minnedosa. Now, we were given these details by submissions. We, of course, really appreciate that. Did a little bit of rewrite on it just to make sure it was a more article style for the readers, of course, because it is a newspaper. But thank you to Mendoza Bowl for sending all this information in, and the pictures as well. Much, much appreciated. So there were 3 Mendoza youth bowlers who went out and participated in a Manitoba Provincial Singles Tournament. And they came back with some accommodations there, or commendations, I should say. And that was Douglas Dalgarno, and I apologize if I mispronounce any names.
You got it right.
Okay, thank you. And Owen Robinson and Cadence Madden. Congratulations to the 3 of you. Did really well out there. I've got the statistics in here. There was, of course, participation in the over average event, the Bantam division of the Scratch event, and the senior division of the Scratch event for each respective player. And take a look for yourself to see how they did with their scores there, and take a look and put the faces to the names, as it works. We do, again, have their photos on there. Once again, congratulations.
That's
Anything
cool.
you'd like to add on that?
Well, just glancing at the paper here, Casper, and my eyes fell upon 2 things. One, a page you do all the time and do such a good job on, but just before that, a performer by the name of Emma Peterson. You can read about that on page 2 of this week's banner. There's the ad there and the story. Emma Peterson is going to perform here in Neepawa on the 14th of December. So that's going to be a real good event. But I was looking at page 3, and page 3 every week, Casper does a lot of work putting this together. She has them. How many weeks ahead, or do you have it written up? You never leave yourself short. You've got a few weeks ahead stored up, don't you?
Yeah, I actually got pretty well ahead there. I kind of work on it anytime I'm waiting between interviews, or maybe it's just a slow week, so I don't have a whole lot else to work on just for that week. So I got pretty well ahead there. I do a few weeks at a time, so I'm actually working now on early 2026.
Oh, wow. We have features from 1899 this week, from December 5th, 1924, December 1st, 1949, 1974. There was an annual father-son contest at the Tom Thumb. That's an old designation for hockey age groups, and saw a clash between the oldsters and the youngsters. It was the dads and the kids. And the picture reports that the kids beat the dads back in 1974. And if you were going to the Roxy Theater in 1974, you could watch the movie Alien Thunder with Donald Sutherland and Chief Dan George. Those are 2 names, 2 blasts from the past. But anyway, it's always interesting. I always enjoy, and I do read that page every week pretty carefully, because I want to learn from it. I mean, I wasn't alive in 1924, and occasionally, very rarely, Casper will make a small error.
Yep.
So
I do the touch typing, so I'm typing away and I'm not looking at the keyboards there, and then every now and then it'll pop up like maybe an odd secondary capitalization on something that shouldn't have a capitalization, or that sort of thing, or maybe need to check on something and see if it's an error or not from the original archives.
Well, there's some fascinating stories back there. We are very fortunate that we have the archives for the Neepawa Press, the Neepawa Banner, then the Neepawa Banner Press. We also have in our possession a full set of archives, and it's all digital too, for the Rivers Banner. And we have a full set of archives. Sandra at our office here is still working on getting them brought up to date for the Verdun Empire Advance, and it goes back to 1885. It's by far the oldest paper of the three that we own.
Yeah, lots of valuable stuff in there. Looking back at history and things that, well, I sure did not know. Whether it's, old teams that might be interesting, or different events that happened, or all that sort of stuff. And of course, as Ken pointed out on the page here, we have a old ad for a movie that was going to be playing. Lots of interesting advertisements for different movies back then. Of course, a lot that I'm not familiar with. Maybe the odd one or two that I am familiar with, just by name or the person's face that I happened to see that was an actor in it. This one, of course, I definitely wasn't familiar with, so I was kind of interested to see that. And just taking a look at, of course, the oldsters and youngsters there for the hockey contest. That was kind of neat. There was a few different pictures for that feature in the original archives, but only so much space. I could only really feature one, so had to choose between those. But looking forward to sharing more with you on that next week. I think we have a little bit more time, so I guess we'll do a shout out to something else I'm very appreciative that we got in this week's papers on page 16. We get this every now and then from Crystal Scott over in Minnedosa, and that is the Highland Dance exam results. This comes from Expressive Dance with Crystal, and we were able to get those results in for this week. Lots of people participate in this program at all sorts of different levels, so there was a lot of photos that we could choose from. Again, we only have so much space, so we could only feature a few, but if you want to take a look at that and get familiar with all these people, see some of their faces, and hear a bit about what they did, take a look at that. I mean, it's quite impressive, the kind of dance that they do here, and it's really interesting seeing just the clothing as well. I always get a kick out of the clothing because it just looks so nice.
Yeah, there's about 25 kids in that group. Of course, they're in the tartans and all dressed up, and it's a pretty spiffy performance to experience. So thank you for getting that in the paper, Casper, and thank you to Crystal for sending that. And that reminds me that if you have things that you would like to see in the paper, by all means send them. If we've got space, we'll try and use them. And so that's something we want to really emphasize. Our company now deals all the way from Lake Manitoba to the Saskatchewan border. We're over 120 miles north to south, and we're about 150 miles east to west. We can't be everywhere. I did a quick count the other day. We're in at least 20 towns and major villages, and even more places than that around the western part of Manitoba. So we need help. Send us stuff. We'll try and get it in the paper.
Absolutely. And we could touch a little bit as well, if you'd like, Ken, very quickly on your editorial for this week on page 4.
Oh my. Don't get me
just
started.
For a quick little bit here. I know we're running short here slowly, but does touch again on Canada Post and just, well, that whole deal.
Well, of our 10,000 papers that we put out, we are almost entirely out of Canada Post now. The only ones we'll be going through Canada Post will be the few subscribers we have who are outside our coverage area, our distribution area. And the headline sums it all up, and I think it sums up what a lot of people feel. I think I'm done with Canada Post. And I am. I'm done.
Yeah.
There are 7 postal strikes in 35 years, and I'm done.
Mm-hmm. No, that's understandable. I mean, I want the workers to be fairly compensated and all of that, but I've talked about that, I think, in previous weeks, and unfortunately that's all the time we have for this right now. We do need to wrap up. So thank you once again for joining us on this week's episode of Story Behind the Stories. You can reach out to us at news@neepawabanner.com if you'd like to send us any stories, thumbs up, etc. And if you'd like to do advertising, ads at neepawabanner.com. Thank you once again on behalf of myself and Ken, and have a good week.